Welcome to the Miami Condo Minute. I'm Peter Zalewski. I'm a condo consultant. I'm also the founder of the Miami Condo Investing Club. Check out the website, miamicondo.club. If you give me a minute, I'll give you some valuable information about the South Florida condo market. What are we talking about today? We are talking about the Biscayne Boulevard corridor submarket of Greater Downtown Miami. Anybody who doesn't know where that is, if you think about Greater Downtown Miami, this will be the stretch from the General Douglas MacArthur Causeway north to the Julia Tuttle Causeway. It'll be Biscayne Bay west to Interstate 95. We're going to be talking about what's going on the Biscayne Boulevard corridor today. Why? Because I'm doing a tour, a walking tour, 3-hour walking tour on Saturday, July the 19th, in which I will take attendees out walking about 3 hours or so. We'll travel about 4 miles. We'll go at a leisurely pace. We'll have some stops along the way. And I'm going to teach them how to analyze condo buildings. I'm a big believer that if you are looking for a condo, first and foremost, you should identify buildings that make sense. And once you have a building that makes sense, then you're able to drill down and determine which particular units, you might want to take a run at. Some of you might not necessarily recognize the name Biscayne Boulevard corridor. Well, it's one of 3 submarkets that make up Greater Downtown Miami by our definition. It would be the area that goes from the Julia Tuttle south to the MacArthur Causeway. The submarket to the south of that would be called the Central Business District. And then ultimately, when you get south of the river, Miami River, you're going to get in the Brickell Avenue area. But this Biscayne Boulevard corridor area was always an area that was kind of up and coming and had a lot of potential, simply because it had a number of sites that were basically tear downs. You had 1-story and 2-story buildings. Much of it has got torn down. It's been replaced by condominiums. And what we've seen emerge from it is we have 3 distinct neighborhoods now. We have the Edgewater area, which will effectively be east of Miami Avenue. We have the Midtown section. Midtown is going to be between 2nd and Miami Avenue and just north of 29th Street. And then finally, we have the Wynwood area. Wynwood's going to be comprised of the old warehouses that were turned into art galleries. And lo and behold, that has led to a whole boom in nightlife, restaurants, clubs, still a lot of art. So these 3 neighborhoods are all located within the Biscayne Boulevard corridor. Again, being Edgewater, being Midtown, as well as the Wynwood area. Now, trying to understand what's going on in the Biscayne Boulevard corridor marketplace and or even Greater Downtown Miami can be a little bit complicated. The reason that is that 204 projects with just under 59,000 units exist in about a 60-block stretch from the Rickenbacker Causeway up to the Tuttle, then Biscayne Bay west to Interstate 95. But this Biscayne Boulevard corridor area, you're talking 69 projects, 15,500 units or so. It's a lot of product to look at. It's a lot of product to try to understand. And what we say is you need to eliminate product or towers and focus on the ones that actually make sense. And that's where you do your due diligence. That's where you start to really kind of zoom in and focus on what you want to do. Now, if you take a look at the Biscayne Boulevard corridor, it's a market that is struggling. It's a market that is in a buyer's market. How much of a buyer's market is the Biscayne Boulevard corridor? Right now, just under 800 units on the market, average asking price just under $1.1 million per unit or per door, $759 a foot, and 173 days on the market and not yet under contract and or close. Typically, when a condo does go under contract, it takes about 30, 60 days to close. So at this point, 173 days on the market and running, you add 60 days of that, we're talking somewhere in the vicinity of 230 days, best case scenario for anybody trying to sell a condo in this Biscayne Boulevard corridor. Now, interesting enough, during the winter buying season, which stretched from November through April, so it would have been November of 2024 through April of 2025, there were a grand total of 213 condos that traded in this Biscayne Boulevard corridor area. They traded for an average of just under $859,000 per door and or $667 a foot. And interesting enough, the condos that traded during the winter buying season, they traded in 109 days. The entire process from listing to going under contract to transacting, 109. Compare that to today's market where listings are sitting on the market 173 days and counting. So we're obviously seeing a slowdown in terms of the number of transactions going on as well as the pace of transactions. Now, talking about that pace, during the winter, 213 units traded over a 6-month period. if you do some real quick math, that's roughly about 36 units a month that we're trading. If I take those 36 units a month that traded during the busy winter time when everybody's in town because the weather's great, there's always events, there's a carnival-like vibe. Take those 36 units on average that traded during the winter, divide that on what's currently on the market, just under 800 units. You're going to come up with 22 months of supply, which means if no additional units were to come on the market and the sales pace were to continue, it would take us close to 2 years to sell out of all this inventory. Equilibrium is 6 months. 6 months typically is what you would hope to see. Now, when it's less than 6 months of supply, the seller's going to have the advantage. However, when it's more than 6 months of supply, especially up at Biscayne Boulevard corridor where there's 22 months of supply, that means it's a buyer's market where buyers are going to have the ability to lowball. Now, not all sellers are going to take lowball offers, but as time goes by and as rents continue to come down, watch for some sort of moment of capitulation to occur. And once that does, a couple units trade in a building at a lower and lower price. And before you know it, the whole building has to be repriced, which means it contributes to the possibility of a doom loop, kind of like a plane going down and, can the pilot pull the plane out of the death spiral, if you will? So that's something you need to keep an eye on. That's something you need to watch. Biscayne Boulevard corridor is an interesting place because it typically was the place where it's a place you started off. Maybe you didn't have all the cash. Maybe you wanted a view, but you couldn't necessarily walk because the neighborhood was still a little bit sketchy. That's where you would start off. And then as you sort of evolved and made more money and you were a little bit more refined, then you tended to go to the Central Business District, which would be the MacArthur Causeway south of the Miami River. And then ultimately, once you sort of reached the point of success or that point in your career when you could really drop the big money, especially if you wanted a view or you wanted to walk, then you go into Brickell Avenue area. So each of the three submarkets has its own little niche. In Biscayne Boulevard corridor increasingly has a niche of people who are kind of new to town. They're looking for best value, in air quotes, meaning primarily a view, but not necessarily the neighborhood and the necessary services or retail services and restaurants that you'd find in a place like Brickell Avenue area. All that being said, if you're interested in Biscayne Boulevard corridor, I would invite you out this Saturday from 10 till 1 o'clock or so. The Miami Condo Correction Tour. We're focused on Biscayne Boulevard corridor, which will include the Edgewater area, the Midtown neighborhood, as well as the Wynwood neighborhood. We're going to tour all that. I'm going to give you a handout, a list of all of the different condo projects in the particular area. I'm also going to teach you how to analyze buildings, and I'll tell you stories along the way about developers and just some of the only in Miami types of issues that have occurred. So if you're interested in taking one of the tours, you want more information, please go to miamicondoclub.eventbrite.com, miamicondoclub.eventbrite.com, or visit our website, miamicondo.club. I'm Peter Zalewski. I'm a condo consultant. I'm also the founder of the Miami Condo Investing Club. Check out our website, miamicondo.club.